Hi, I'm Chris Young, and welcome to Good News on Tap for the 30th Sunday in Ordinary Time. As I mentioned last week, one of the major themes of Luke's Gospel is persistence and patience. This week we have several examples of people who are at rock bottom and need some persistence and patience. The first reading talks about orphans, widows, and lowly people. And it says that although God shows no favoritism towards the weak, their prayers and their petitions definitely make their way towards Him, and He always responds. In the second reading, we still have Paul in prison, and he's at his wit's end. He realizes his days are numbered. It seems that all of his friends have abandoned him, but he knows that God will never abandon him, and he draws strength from that fact. He understands all good things will come in time. And finally, in today's Gospel, we have an example of two people who are approaching God in prayer. Both are concerned about how they look in God's eyes, because they know that God will judge them, and their souls are at risk. Now, the Pharisees, as you know, are the people who are very legalistic in their approach to God. They felt that as long as they're within the letter of the law, nothing else mattered. So the Pharisee comes to God saying he's done all that's been prescribed. But then he looks down on other people with disdain and hatred. He egotistically places himself on a pedestal above all the other sinners, rather than recognizing his own faults and shortcomings. On the other hand, we have the tax collector, and as we know, they were renowned for fraudulently skimming off the top of all the taxes they collected. He approaches the Lord with humility and acknowledges his sinful ways. In fact, he's so humble about his shortcomings that he doesn't even feel worthy to approach the altar. He stays in the back. Jesus tells the crowd that this humble sinner is justified, but the Pharisee is not. So it doesn't matter how low we get, how much turmoil or pain or suffering we endure. God is with us always, even when we feel like all others have abandoned us. For those who are out of work or underemployed, or just barely getting by in these tough times, we need to hold fast to the lessons of these readings. If we're suffering ourselves, do we come to the Lord and humbly ask Him to relieve our suffering? Do we have the faith to know that He will hear our prayers, no matter what we've done? On the other hand, if we're in a position of authority, or if we're fortunate to have many blessings, do we look down upon those who have little? If we're fortunate enough to do well during tough economic times, it's naturally tempting to want to hold on tighter to what we have, for fear we'll lose it. And so we want to reject those who are needy, who seem to be stealing the little bit that we have. But we need to understand, God shows no favorites. He treats the rich and the poor alike. And if we're to follow His example, we must do the same. We have to hear the pleas of those who are less fortunate. The psalm this week says, "The Lord hears the cries of the poor." Let us take comfort that He hears us always, and let us not ignore the cries of the poor ourselves. And that's Good News on Tap for the 30th Sunday of Ordinary Time.